Hollywood's whitewashing of war is something Spike Lee has been thinking about for most of his life. As a kid, the director and his brother Chris would sit in front of the television for entire afternoons watching World War II films. According to Spike Lee, his favorites were His Paris Burning and John Frankenheimer's The Train with Burt Lancaster. But Lee's father would always tell him, "We fought in that war too." So in 2008, Spike Lee made his own World War II movie, Miracle at St. Anna, about 4 Buffalo soldiers waylaid in Italy. Lee scraped much of the financing together in Europe after many American studios passed and channeled his father in the opening scene, in which a black veteran watches John Wayne's The Longest Day on TV and growls at the screen, "Pilgrim, we fought for this country too." And now, in the midst of a late career renaissance sparked by the Oscar-winning 2018 hit Black Klansman, Spike Lee made his second war movie. Hi, my name is Dapo Ibrahim, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the 3 films that have influenced what I believe is Spike Lee's most recent masterpiece, The Five Blood. Spike Lee has had 22 films over the years, kicking his film career off with She's Got to Have It. The Five Blood was originally a 2013 spec script by Danny Bilson and Paul DeMille titled The Last Tour, with Oliver Stone set to direct it before Spike Lee picked up the project. Due to theater closure, the film was released by Netflix on June 12, 2020, receiving praises for its directing style, themes, and Delroy Lindo's iconic performance, with many considering it among Lee's best work. The film received numerous accolades, including nominations for the Academy Award for Best Original Score and Screen Actors Guild Award for Outstanding Performance by a Cast in Motion Picture. Lee's intention was to tell another black story, this time the involvement of black soldiers during the Vietnam War. He and his co-writer already knew it was going to be another Vietnam film, and they wanted to tell it through the eyes of African American soldiers who during the high point of the Vietnam War were 1/3 of the fighting force, yet at the same time only 10% of the population back home. In the movie The Five Blood, 4 African American vets decide to return to Vietnam, seeking the remains of their fallen squad leader Stormy Norman, a character played by Chadwick Boseman, and the gold fortune he helped them conceal when they heard there was a landslide that might help them in identifying where their hidden gold bars were buried. This mission eventually requires them to have to engage the forces of man and nature. Having said that, there were lots of classical movies that highly influenced Spike Lee's creative decision when he set out to create his most recent masterpiece, The Five Blood. 3 of these movies were Rambo, directed by Ted Kotcheff, Apocalypse Now by Francis Coppola, and The Seven Samurai by Akira Kurosawa. In Rambo, we see Sylvester Stallone returning from the Vietnam War to fight another war, and this time to win. This cinematically correlates with the 5 black soldiers in The Five Bloods returning to the Vietnam War location to find the gold as portrayed by Spike Lee. There are also the referencing of classical Hollywood images with the racist and imperialist residue in Rambo, which was also highlighted in the introduction of the French businessman who later wore Paul's MAGA hat in the ending sequence of the film. Following the Rambo cinematic outlook, The Five Blood exists in direct conversation with Apocalypse Now, and in true Spike Lee fashion, he makes no effort to hide it. We see this when the 4 surviving blood return to Vietnam, middle-aged and still carrying a variety of unseen wounds. One of the first places where they stop is a bar that shares the name of Coppola's film. The Vietnamese dance club, with the Apocalypse Now logo behind the DJ, is clearly welcoming a comparison to Francis Ford Coppola's war epic. The helicopter scene is set to Richard Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries. establishing a through line from Apocalypse Now. Furthermore, Spike Lee wasn't scared to reveal his inspirations behind The Five Blood, with the overall construct of the story bearing a striking resemblance to Akira Kurosawa's 1954 drama, The Seven Samurai. Director Akira Kurosawa was one of Japan's most powerful filmmakers. He remains famous to this day for his fast editing and dynamic use of camera, exuberant driving of the narrative, and use of master-student relationship as key motive. We see a similar fast-paced cut in the boat scene that introduces us to Paul and his PTSD struggles. Akira Kurosawa's vision and masterful directing highly impacts Spike Lee's storytelling techniques. The Five Blood uses 4 aspect ratios as framing device, which distinguishes between the film's different time period and location. The 1960s flashback sequence was shot in 1331 format and on 16mm film, mimicking newsreel footage of the time which were proposed by the cinematographer Newton Thomas Sigel. Netflix executives initially were resistant to the proposal given the challenge it presented, but Lee was adamant and was eventually allowed to proceed. With the exception of a brief scene filmed using a Super 8 camera in 2:39:1 ratio, the modern scenes were shot digitally. The present-day cities were framed in widescreen 2:39:1 ratio. The present-day jungle scene were captured in 16:9 ratio, as Lee and Sigel sought to envelope the group with the vastness of the jungle. I'd also like to mention that in most of Spike Lee's films, the plot is somehow loose, but the theme of fraternity and paternity, the never-ending legacy of wars and racism portrayed with great depth and realism, keeps the production tight. Chadwick Boseman, may so rest in peace, was allowed to really immerse himself into his character, Stormy Norman, and he made us all feel the pain, sorrow, anger, and rage. He was responsible for forging the bond between the Black Vietnam US veteran soldiers, a fearless leader and fighter, but also awakens the social conscience of the squad, and actor Delroy Lindo was superb as usual. The Five Blood is top-loaded with a lot of historical references regarding racism and the very real injustice Black Vietnam soldiers and veterans faced during and after the conflict.